This is the start of a new series, Irish Sentence Structure. I've heard a lot of people tell me that Irish sentence structure is one of the most difficult things for them when learning Irish, trying to form sentences they're not really sure how. So I'm going to do a few videos talking about the elements of grammar that relate to sentence structure. This lesson is going to cover a lot of the most basic aspects of Irish sentence structure. I think a lot of you will know this already, but I want to set a good foundation so that we can build into the more advanced stuff. So the first thing you need to know is that Irish is a verb-subject-object language, or VSO. That defines the order that the words are placed in a sentence. In English, it's subject, verb, object. So for example, Finn ate a salmon. Finn is the subject, the doer of the action. Ate is the verb, the action itself. And salmon is the object, the thing that the action is done to. In Irish, this would be structured as di fiún bradán. So we get ate first, and then Finn, and then a salmon. For some other examples, we have Finn killed the giant, mharaigh fiún an fathach. Níl hears Oisín, Cloiseann níl Oisín, and Diarmuid will defeat the boar. Dúirt Diarmuid an Turk. Overall, this is pretty simple. The verb is just moved to the start of the sentence compared to English. The order is similar for be, the verb to be, where the verb is at the start, then the subject, and then the predicate. The predicate is just a name we have for the information or the description about the subject. So for example, Oisín is strong. Strong there is the predicate. Tá Oisín láidir. The verb comes at the start, then the subject, then the predicate. Some more examples. We have Finn was inside. Bhí fiún stig. Níl is on the horse. Tá níl gapal. The predicate part can be an adjective, like in the first example, láidir, strong. It can be an adverb, like istig, meaning inside. Or it can be a prepositional phrase. So gapal is a prepositional phrase because is a preposition. Now, this is one of the most important things in the whole video. If you've got a notebook, grab it, write this part down. This is important. The describing part at the end cannot be another noun. If you want to say things like Finn is a hero, she is my mother, and so on, you have to use a different structure, which we're going to talk about in the next lesson. You don't use tá. I'm going to talk now a bit about verbal particles. In English, we have a few different ways of indicating questions. Sometimes we swap the words, so we say Finn is strong becomes is Finn strong, or we put do at the start of the sentence, so you see it becomes do you see it. In Irish, it's pretty straightforward. We just add what's called a particle before the verb. This is a small word which changes the meaning. So for does níl hear Oisín, we put on at the start, an Cloiseann níl Oisín. Cloiseann níl Oisín is a statement, an Cloiseann níl Oisín is a question. For did Finn kill the giant, we say mharaigh fiún an fathach. The statement would be mharaigh fiún an fathach. The at the start there makes it a question. Is the question particle for regular verbs in the past tense, and is used for the other tenses and for a few irregular verbs in the past tense. There's a similar particle for making things negative. We have ní and near. It's the same pattern here. Near is for regular verbs in the past tense, and ní is for every other tense and some of those irregulars. And it's the same irregulars that use ní and Cloiseann níl Oisín becomes ní Cloiseann níl Oisín. Mharaigh fiún an fathach becomes níor mharaigh fiún an fathach. There's also negative question particles, ná and nár. And in the standard, they use nach instead of ná. But in Kerry and in Munster in general, they use ná. So Cloiseann níl Oisín becomes ná Cloiseann níl Oisín, doesn't níl hear Oisín. Ná hithin sé bradán, doesn't he eat salmons? Nár mharaigh fiún an fathach, didn't Finn kill the giant? Some irregular verbs have different forms that come out after these verbal particles, called dependent forms. That's just a name for the form that's used after these particles. For example, tá asín láidir becomes an bhfuil asín láidir. Fuil is the dependent form. Similarly, isn't asín strong is ná bhfuil asín láidir. But here's one that people sometimes get cut out on. Asín isn't strong is níl asín láidir. And níl here is the negative. It comes from níl because the FH is silent. People sometimes get confused between níl and ní. But remember that níl is the negative form of the verb tá, whereas ní is the verbal particle that you use to negate other verbs. If we want to express an idea like Finn thinks that he's strong, or we're linking two different verbs, thinks and he is, how would we do that? There's another particle for this. It's go and gur in the past. We use it like the English that to join the two parts of the sentence. So we have ceapan fiún go bhfuil sé láidir. Ceapan is thinks, and then go bhfuil sé that he is. Dúirt Níl go raibh asín dahúil. Níl said that asín was handsome. We can link two verb phrases using that go in a subordinating clause, if you want the technical term for it. Now, in English, you can skip the word that in these kind of sentences. So you can say, Finn thinks he's strong. Níl said asín was handsome. But in Irish, you can't skip the that. You can't skip go. You have to put it in. So even if you're translating, Finn thinks he's strong, you still have to say, ceapan fiún go bhfuil sé láidir. You have to have the go. And there's actually a negative form of this joining particle, and it's the same as the negative question forms we looked at earlier. So if you want to say, he says he's not old, it's deir sé ná bhfuil sé sean. If you want to say, she thinks he didn't kill the giant, ceapan sí ná mharaigh sé an fathach. Now this is actually all of the content for the first lesson, and if you want to try your own hand at this, I have some exercises on screen. The answers will be in the description, and I really think it's a good idea to try and practice the stuff that I've talked about here, just to make sure you have a solid idea in your head. So feel free to pause and answer in your own time. In Kerry, some speakers will use the non-past verb particles even with regular verbs in the past tense. So you would have an mharaigh sé an fathach instead of mharaigh sé an fathach. Ní mharaigh sé an fathach instead of níor mharaigh sé an fathach. Deir sé go múil sé é instead of deir sé gur bhfuil sé é. And ná bhfuil fiún é instead of nár bhfuil fiún é. The past tense forms are still used sometimes though, so it's still good to know them. That's it for lesson 1. This stuff is pretty foundational and it'll get more complex from here, so stick around even if you knew all of this already. And on the other hand, if anything here confused you, please let me know in the comments and I can try to explain it a bit more.